Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Post-Match Live. My name is David. This is We Ain't Got No History, and this is Tuesday. What is this? December 12th. It's 12/12. A few minutes after Chelsea's 3-1 win over Huddersfield Town, way up north somewhere past the wall in the cold and freezing rain. Expected after Saturday. Expected the worst, but got basically the best. So it's all pretty good. Pretty good on this Tuesday afternoon. Got ourselves a cold Guinness. Got ourselves 3 points and 3 goals. What more could you ask for? 3-1 to Chelsea, and it never even really was in doubt, right? Yeah, never in doubt, as people like to say after the narrowest 1-0 victories or late comebacks. But this one was not in doubt. Basically, from minute one, Huddersfield didn't even really manage the customary first 10-15 minutes when Chelsea would just decide to not play and let the other team get ahead, score an early goal. Yeah, that clean sheet at the end. Courtois was not very happy about conceding that last goal. Neither was Conte, but that's what makes them winners, right? If they were happy with losing the clean sheet with literally the last kick of the game, then that would be we would have issues with that. We'd have no issues with this with their reaction. It's unfortunate that we couldn't keep the clean sheet. But it's one of those goals that really doesn't matter much, neither for us nor for Huddersfield. Even though it might make him feel good, I guess I'm not so sure. Chemo says easy points tonight. Still, why no batsman? Yeah, so that was the big, I guess, surprise. We could say it was a surprise. I certainly was expecting Batshuayi to play from the beginning. He has been. He's been back from injury for a couple weeks now. Or last week at least, he made a substitute appearance against Atletico and looked pretty decent and came pretty close to actually winning that game. But unfortunately today he didn't get the start. I wonder how much of that actually had to do with us reverting to the 3-4-3. If you recall from last season, the narrative was that Batshuayi is better in a 2-striker formation than a 3-striker formation, or 3 forwards. And so we went back to the 3-4-3 today and started the 3 smalls up top instead of Batshuayi flanked by whoever. I mean, I guess the drawback is that Hazard played once again. This possibly would have been a good game to rest him for a little bit. Question for Morata: why he didn't play tonight? Morata is injured or picked up a back injury. It didn't sound like it was anything serious, but last week he was affected by an illness, which was part of the reason why apparently he played so badly on Saturday. It's the same illness that ruled out Drinkwater from Saturday's game. And I think it was Cahill who was saying that there's been an injury going around, or an illness going around last week. So Morata was rested today because of that injury, and I don't think he even traveled. Drinkwater was back, but he didn't start. And neither did Batshuayi. So I was kind of expecting both Drinkwater and Batshuayi to start. I was a little surprised to not see them starting, especially because instead we went with the 3 small attacking midfielders up top. Hazard, Pedro, and Willian as the front 3. And everybody's favorite scapegoat, Timo Bakayoko, was given the start once again. Although this time, he was given the start in the 2-man midfield next to Conte, and back in the summer, this was basically what we presumed would be the final look to the midfield. That's before we kind of started playing with the 3-5-2 more often. But certainly Conte and Bakayoko is the partnership that we've had envisioned for a while as would be the first choice. So it's good to see them, given a go. Bakayoko, it was nice to see him start just because after Saturday's game, Conte insisted that Bakayoko actually played well, but he was withdrawn because it was a tactical switch to put on Pedro and is a different sort of player. So it was, in that sense, it was good to see that Bakayoko was once again given the start instead of being benched for being out of form, which would have gone against Conte's own assessment on Saturday. So in that sense, it was a consistent choice for the head coach to start with Bakayoko, and as fate would have it, the 23-year-old repaid the faith in him with a well-taken goal to get us started. Curry says he's not consistent at Chelsea, namely Bakayoko, but in a way that you kind of expect that from somebody who's still just 23. We do forget that a lot of these guys are very young. I mean, Hazard was very inconsistent at 21 and 22 as well. And even now, you can ask people and they'll say, he has... Part of it is the nature of his position, but also, he's inconsistent. He's still only 25 or 26, so, his consistency is one of those things that kind of comes with age and experience. And Bakayoko is experienced enough, but he's still young, and he's adjusting to a new league. All that usual side business. He's adjusting to a new language, a new culture. He's been carrying an injury since the summer. It's unclear if he's ever really gotten past that knee problem that both delayed his transfer and then delayed his debut. And then, he played on half a leg in against Spurs, which he possibly should not have done. As Neil says, we also use different formations. So we've deployed Bakayoko in at least 3 different positions in midfield. Like today, next to Conte in the 2. He's played the base of a 3, like at the start of the Atletico game. He's played at the base of it when Conte was making the runs up. And then Bakayoko's also played the shuttler in the midfield 3, like against Manchester United. So he's it's an adjustment period, and a lot of it is also having to change the formation, having changed the tactics does lead to inconsistent performances. Imagine that. It's one of those things where if Conte plays the same thing over and over, then we criticize him for that. And if he continues to chop and change a lot, then we criticize him for that. It's the nature of the job, I suppose. But today Conte's decisions certainly paid off. Both the front 3. I mean, I think Hazard's always wasted when he's playing as a center forward, which he did today. He's much more influential in a more withdrawn role, either on the left or in the center. When he's leading the line, his effectiveness is reduced a little bit, but he still found plenty of ways to get involved. Sometimes dropping deep. His little flicks really came off today. A couple nice dummies, some step overs. Is good stuff from Hazard, and he was withdrawn around the 70th minute, so he got a bit of a rest. Same goes for Conte, and same goes for Christensen. And that right there, if you need any indication of who our 3 most important and indispensable players are at the moment, other than maybe Morata, who obviously didn't play, but Hazard, Conte, and Christensen being saved by the coach for the next game. So there you go. There's your 3 most important players for Chelsea at the moment, which the two of those guys are obviously, you would expect them, Hazard and Conte, but Christensen's quick rise from loan army returnee, possible hopeful for the future, to now one of the first names on the first choice team sheet. That's pretty fantastic for a 21-year-old who's looking every bit as good as we had hoped back in the day. Chris says it's almost like Hazard's interplay is more important to the team than his goals and assists. I think that certainly can be the case, or is the case, for Hazard. and he'll tell you that himself, and many others will tell you that as well. He's judging him just by goals and assists is missing a lot of the contributions that he provides to the team. And unfortunately, that's probably why, if he stays at Chelsea, which I hope he will, that's one of the reasons he probably will never win recognition like the Ballon d'Or, which is heavily weighted towards goals. I think Conte was talking about how somebody like N'Golo Kante, will never win a Ballon d'Or because, midfielders who don't score a lot of goals don't win Ballon d'Ors. In fact, midfielders hardly ever win Ballon d'Ors. Even Frank Lampard only got up to, second that one year when he lost to Ronaldinho. So, it's goals and assists, especially goals that get rewarded by a little popularity contests like that. So, if Hazard's okay and not winning that instead of winning some trophies with the team, then he should stay. He will stay. Hopefully that is what's going to happen. Speaking of the future, Frank says Christensen is the future, and I think we can all agree on that one. That one's working out almost as well, if not so far better than Courtois coming back from his long-term loan. Only reason I'd say Christensen's working out so far a little better is because the side story with Courtois ever since he's come back is that he's going to go back to Spain eventually, which he himself said that he's going to. Whether that obviously is going to happen anytime soon is up for debate. But Christensen seems by all indications seems quite happy to stay, and he's not making any noises of going back to wherever, Mönchengladbach or whatever he was at. So that's one plus he's got over Courtois. Christensen's like a top signing for us, says Neil. Indeed. And he is. It's when we look back on this, I mean, Emenalo and those guys have certainly gotten more than their fair share of criticism for Chelsea's use of the loan system and all this nonsense. And certainly there are many prospects who've fallen by the wayside, possibly could have worked out a little differently for many of them. But when we look at success stories like Courtois or Christensen, or even Victor Moses, who's, stay committed through, 3 years in various different teams in the Premier League, and now he's a year and a half into being a key player at Chelsea, and he actually just turned 27 today. So happy birthday to Victor Moses, who unfortunately was not voted the BBC's Africa Player of the Year. Instead, it was Mo Salah, an ex-Chelsea player. So there you go. Yeah, so maybe somebody like Mo Salah could have worked out a little better, but we at least have Christensen and Courtois and Moses to point out as success stories from our little loan experiments. Carrie says, I hope that David Luiz still has his position in Chelsea. Well, yeah, I'm not so sure. We'll see when David Luiz, if and when David Luiz actually recovers from his knee injury. We'll see what happens. What happens with him. I'd like to think that David Luiz won't be sold in January. He might be sold in the summer. I mean, that's a long ways away. But right now, I'm not so sure we could afford to lose a player of David Luiz's caliber. Even if he doesn't start, he's the obvious backup to Christensen right now. As weird as that sounds, because 4 months ago we said Christensen is the obvious backup to David Luiz. So that was a quick turnaround on that narrative, but losing David Luiz would mean that we'd be left with just 4 defenders. And while right now we have 4 central defenders, right now we have good health in that department. considering how all the other positions have gone so far this season. You know, you gotta have your 16, 17 players that you can trust at least, if not more, to maintain the challenge. I mean, the league might not be, or isn't, I guess. I'm not so sure we need to waffle too much about that. You know, the league is Manchester City's to lose, but we still have obviously the Champions League to fight for in February and March, when it's going to be Barcelona. And that's going to be a whole nother thing to worry about. Although, interestingly, somebody was mentioning that Christensen actually has played against, of all the Chelsea players, he's the one who's played most recently against Barcelona since Mönchengladbach were in their group last season or 2 seasons ago in the Champions League. So there's some good experience for us. But yeah, so there's obviously Barcelona in the Champions League, and then we have 2 cup competitions. In the League Cup, we have Bournemouth coming up next week, midweek, and that's in the quarterfinal, and that's it's an easy, well, not easy, but it's a win that we must have. And then the FA Cup begins in January, so there's still going to be plenty of squad depth and rotation needed. In the meantime, the top 4, I mean, everybody's, even I was listening to the commentary for today's game, and for a little bit I had to switch to radio, and they were saying, I think it was on TalkSport or wherever, but they were talking about how, what do, how do you motivate Chelsea at this point if you're giving up on the league? How do you motivate them for the rest of the season? And I mean, the top 4 race is going to be intense. Like, Manchester City are walking away with the rest of it, but that means there are 5 teams left for 3 spots in the top 4, and that's going to go down to the wire the way it's looking right now. We're actually, after today, we're briefly level on points with United for second, which is good. United play tomorrow. That should be a pretty easy win for them. But there's plenty left to fight for, and we're going to need plenty of squad depth to get through all this. And that means that we're probably going to need David Luiz if and when he returns from his knee thing. There's a couple people, I think Batshuayi was the latest to post something on Instagram about David Luiz working in the pool, and there was somebody else posted him running in the 0G treadmill. So he's trying, I guess, but there's nobody's given any timeline for his return or anything like that. So it's unclear. It's unclear what his future is, but hopefully, at least until the summer, it means he's with Chelsea, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Chris says 3 examples of loan success in the first 11. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. Three starters right now, certainly of the first choice 11. That's if we consider this the new homegrown. It's how many other teams can really point to 3 players whom they acquired as maybe not 8-year-olds, but say before the first team or very young for the first team. And we can point to those 3 guys. We can even point to Hazard if we really want to stretch the definition of buying young players and letting them grow into the team. Hazard obviously was world class basically back in 2012 already as the most coveted prospect young player around Europe. So he's come good on his promise, but there's never any guarantees. I mean, Hazard could have easily turned into another Robinho or whatever. So it's making the good choices and signing the good players. Signing Moses when he was young, and that's worked out pretty well. So it's good stuff, and we can look at other smart buys too, like Azpilicueta or even Gary Cahill. N'Golo Kante, considering what prices other players are commanding these days, N'Golo Kante for something like 30 million is a bargain. Marcus Alonso seemed like a lot of money at the time, but he's grown into an important player. And so for a team, we can no longer. This is not the early 2000s or whatever. We're no longer the biggest financial force in world football. Cannot compete with the likes of City or United or even PSG, Real Madrid, all these guys, Barcelona. So you have to make the smart buys, and you have to you kind of have to buy players like Bakayoko and deal with a couple seasons of, or at least a season of inconsistent play, and hoping that he grows into the 40 million pound consistent midfield general force that he's shown he can be at times. Yeah, Bakayoko was pretty good tonight, I thought. Nice to see him bounce back, not show any signs of lack of confidence from the events of Saturday and a couple other games where he's received a bit of public criticism. But yeah, good stuff. Moses' crosses seem to have improved as of late. Well, today was a little weird in that both Moses and Alonso were afforded just acres of space, and it was a nice. The thing I liked seeing most tonight, especially after the first few minutes, was Huddersfield basically set out with the same exact tactics as West Ham on Saturday. Stay compact, sit deep, allow Chelsea plenty of time on the ball, and then force us into making good plays to beat this compact 10, 11 men behind the ball. And on Saturday, we insisted on trying to go through the middle. Our passing was inaccurate when we tried to go wide. Part of that was because we played Zappacosta instead of Moses, but then part of that was just tactics. Part of that was we played a 3-5-2 instead of a 3-4-3, so it's added extra options up top and extra options up wide, and less insistence on going through the middle. And we did that pretty well today. There's a lot of diagonals out to both Moses and Alonso. Some of them were inaccurate, but sometimes that happens. I mean, Rudiger passing from the back is not going to be David Luiz or Fabregas passing from the back. Same thing goes for Christensen, but just them going for these cross diagonals and taking advantage of the space offered by Huddersfield was good to see. Part of that is from there. Some of the crosses into the box were not exactly the smartest because we didn't actually have an actual center forward. There's no Morata there to head the ball in. I mean, Willian scored a header, which was surprising as anything. Part of that was just the Huddersfield defender, I think it was Lowe or whoever it was, completely missed this header. So Willian, all he had to do was let it bounce off his big hair back into the back of the net. So that was pretty funny. But you can still, when you get the ball out wide to Moses or Alonso, high crosses are not the only option. The cutbacks, the low cross, that's all valid. And that's how the third goal came about, from Alonso, via Alonso to Pedro. So it's nice to see us making the smart plays, taking advantage of what was offered, using our width properly, unlike on Saturday when we struggled. So there's your biggest difference, really, is when you play the wingback system, you rely on your wingbacks, and today we did so, and that was good. That was good. Watching from the Cape Verde Island. Wow, that's pretty cool. I can't say I don't think anybody's ever seen us from the Cape Verde Islands. So welcome. Good game today. Good time to be watching Chelsea. Would you man mark Messi with Conte and let Cesc and Baca worry about Rakitic Busquets? Well, that's certainly looking forward a little bit. I'm not so sure man marking, using Conte to man mark anybody is the best use of Conte's abilities. I think he needs to be kind of floating around midfield and going to where he needs to when he's needed the most. I would possibly consider man marking Messi with somebody else. I don't know. Maybe we can get Morelos back and he'll man mark Messi and kick him a few times. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what how that will go. I mean, there's a chance that Conte is used that way, but I don't know. Maybe somebody will step up and be used in that sense. It's a little too far ahead for me to think about. I think we need to focus on the Premier League and League Cup. League Cup is very important, but in all seriousness, League Cup is probably an attainable trophy at this point. We're into the quarterfinals, so and a winnable matchup here against Bournemouth. So get into the semifinals. That adds 2 more games because for some reason the semifinals are two-legged. I think they're still two-legged. Maybe they changed them. I know there was a call to change the League Cup from this nonsense of playing two-legged semifinals for some reason. But yeah, it's unclear. Winner of semifinal. Yeah, I mean, all the big boys are still in the League Cup. But presumably, the final 4 for that competition could look like Manchester City, United, Chelsea, and Arsenal, and that will certainly lend plenty of weight to the Carabao Cup. We got one from Cyprus too. Nice. Conte must use the young players for the cups. Yeah, I think so. This game against Bournemouth coming up on next Wednesday, that might be the time we see Batshuayi finally start a game because he didn't start today for some reason, and hopefully Musonda gets a start as well. Musonda was on the bench today but didn't get to play. It was young Ethan Ampadu at 17 years old who made his Premier League debut for Chelsea today, coming off for the last 10 minutes or so. Completing the David Luiz look-alike quota on the pitch. Yeah, Ampadu getting a nice reward after several games of just sitting through on the bench. Musonda being back there shows that he's finally gotten over his knee issues. So that's good to see. Hopefully he gets a run out next week alongside Batshuayi. But like I was saying, it's getting close to the crunch time in the League Cup. So there's only you don't want to take it too lightly, because for something like Bournemouth, they'll be thinking it's an opportunity to pull a big result. It's a knockout competition. You never know what will happen. So don't want to take it too easy, but certainly that game is an opportunity to rotate. The next game before then is Southampton on Saturday, so that's clearly when all the first choice players needs to go back in. Hopefully Morata has gotten over his back injury and is ready to resume scoring some goals, because it's starting to be a concerning streak with him with 3 goals in 14 games or whatever it is. So that terrible miss on Saturday, still gotta get over that. Is Michy Batshuayi good enough for Chelsea? Well, I mean, I think he's good enough for Chelsea, but unfortunately, I'm not the one, making the decisions. I thought this game would have been perfect for him to get a start, having been back from injury, but he's only. I mean, he came off the bench, so that's it's better than nothing. It's maybe. I mean, Conte's always a little too cautious when he can be to come back, bring players back from injury. So maybe it's part of that. But yeah, it's. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think this Michi situation eventually is going to result in a loan, as much as I hate to see it. And at that point, he's either going to become the next like Victor Moses in a couple of years. It comes back to become like this dominant center forward, first choice center forward, or the Michi experiment will be over after 2 years, and we'll move on to somebody else. Players come, players go. We have a chance over Christmas to build up ahead of steam, get a few wins, put some pressure on City United. Yeah, I thought the same too before the West Ham incident. That did not help with that narrative structure, but yeah, I mean, these are obviously all winnable games for us. And December, despite being a busy month, this was supposed to be the month where we can put together a really nice long winning streak. West Ham kind of ruined all that, but I'm not so sure we can put pressure on City. We can beat this year's Tottenham, put the pressure on, but we can certainly challenge United for second, and I think that would be a good accomplishment, and hopefully one that the Chelsea board would also consider a good accomplishment, and we would not need to deal with more coaching nonsense changes, all that. So I think a race for second with United. It's obviously you want to win everything, but it's we're what, like 11 or 14 points behind City at this point. Yeah, 14 at the start of today. Right now 11, having played one more. I mean, it's not really realistic to think that we can haul them in. Obviously, you want to be there in second or close if City for some reason do collapse, which would be pretty funny. But it seems like an unlikely event to be hoping for. But certainly there's lots to fight for with United, with Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs even, if you really want to include them. Burnley are up in fourth after tonight after their win. So who knows? Burnley's going to be Leicester City here, going for the top four. So Burnley, a force to be reckoned with. And even Crystal Palace got a win and moved out of the relegation zone for the first time in all season, temporarily, of course. If we don't let Michi go, how can he score against us? Aww. Yeah, well, hopefully Michi, if he does go, he goes back to like France or something, so we never have to face him again, because it's a guaranteed hat trick. If we ever face Batshuayi after we sell him, he's for sure scoring a hat trick. Thorgan Hazard in January, I don't think that's happening. I think that was mostly just a random story that was brought up because somebody realized that it was January and Thorgan Hazard's contract is expiring soon, so he either needs a new extension from Mönchengladbach or he needs to go somewhere. But I don't think Thorgan Hazard, I haven't really heard anything. I mean, you never really know, but there's not been much chatter about him coming back to Chelsea anytime soon. Tammy Abraham. I would take Tammy over Batshuayi at the moment, says Neil. And I think that might be the plan for next season. If Tammy continues to play at Swansea, I hope we leave him there. But I guess, if Batshuayi goes out on loan in January, which I hope doesn't happen, but if he does, then getting Abraham back to be a backup to Morata might be a decent move. And I'd rather keep him at Swansea if he's going to continue playing a lot of minutes. But yeah, I mean Tammy's proving to be certainly somebody we can keep an eye on, and possibly he could live up to the pressures and the requirements of being a striker at Chelsea. Certainly, we would have hoped Solanke would have done that, but that ship has sailed, and I don't think he's looked particularly good for Liverpool, but he's gotten a few minutes there, so good for him. Who will win this year's Champions League if not Chelsea? Oh, is that a valid option? I thought, we're obviously winning it. Come on, man. No. That's a tough question. I don't know. I'm going to pass on that question. So Chris says sign Giroud in January would have the best looking front line ever. I mean, certainly Morata and Giroud is like a handsome boy modeling school or whatever up there. Man, we'd win games just because the defenders would be blinded by their beauty and just stare at them as they calmly headed the ball into the net, one after the other. We'd just be launching cross after cross for either Giroud or Morata to head the ball in. It'd be like peak Mourinho when our late game plan was to throw on like all strikers that we had and then launch balls into the area and hope that Ba or Eto'o or whoever it was would make something happen. And it worked that one time against PSG and it was glorious. But didn't really work any other time. Don't tell that to anybody. Don't tell that to anybody. Conte says he prefers to tell the truth about the difficulty of the challenge of catching Manchester City, but we must still have hope of doing so. Oh, alright. Guess we must still have hope. Tammy can't be recalled in January. Is that right? Is that right? I always thought all loan contracts could be recalled in January. But hey, maybe it's we lose but win. Yes. I think if we have just a good-looking team, we'd automatically win all the games. Even if we lost them, we'd automatically win. That's how it works. This is science. Chelsea regret losing Mo Salah. Yeah, there's plenty to regret, right? I mean, there's Salah, there's De Bruyne, there's even Lukaku if you want to look at him. Although, Lukaku had a bit of a rough game there against City, so he's not exactly high on the regret list these days. But give some time. If Morata continues to struggle, I'm sure Lukaku will come back into the narrative and be like, why didn't we sign that guy instead? But yeah, I mean, Mo Salah, it is what it is. It is what it is. He didn't really look like the player that he is now. I mean, we can say we regret losing him, but I mean, when he was here, I don't know, did anybody see him becoming, how many goals he has, like 19 already? Anybody see this coming? I mean, I'm not even sure Mo Salah himself would have imagined that he would be the Premier League's leading goal scorer, 3 years ago when he was barely out of Basel. And I mean, and it's unfortunate, it's we can blame whoever we want. We can blame, obviously Mourinho is the easy one to blame since he didn't play him. We can blame the loan system. We can blame whatever. We can blame Willian for keeping Mo Salah out of the team. We can blame Salah for not scoring with every touch like he apparently does these days. So, Conte says, maybe tonight I saw the best performance from Timo Bakayoko. There you go. Conte's game plan of building up Bakayoko continues, and hopefully it'll pay off. Yeah, that's actually one thing. One thing I did find ironic is, Bakayoko getting a fair amount of heat, so to speak, from social media these days. But I mean, that's kind of how Salah, for example, his time at Chelsea went. Nobody was really impressed by him when he was here, and he was looked at as a waste of money. I mean, we got what was it, like Schürrle left that season. And certainly we looked at Schürrle and said, "Oh, why did he leave?" We got this chump from Basel instead, and then he was no good. And now look, it's easy to write off players, to give up on players, and it's not easy to give them time. If Salah probably would not have turned out to be the player if that he is now if he stays here. It's a big development or time that he had in Italy to develop his skills and his finishing ability and all this, and become a more complete player than just being somebody who's good at running and scoring a couple of goals. Yeah. Okay, so Neil says for the Abraham loan is he had a certain amount of games played clause. He surpassed that and can't be recalled now. If he had played less than the agreed amount, then he could have recalled him. Okay, so that's kind of what Hodgson was referencing with Loftus-Cheek at Crystal Palace. If I guess the recall clause is dependent on playing time, which makes sense. If the player's not playing, then we can recall him, which we probably will have to do with Lewis Baker, who's kind of become a forgotten player this half season because he's barely played for Middlesbrough. So he needs to get out of here, get out of there, and sent to a team where he can actually get some playing time. It's unfortunate, it's not certainly not the step that that Baker or we would have expected after his couple of years at Vitesse where he grew into a key player for them. Last I remember of Salah was him hitting the corner flag with the worst shot I've ever seen. I'm not even sure that hit the corner flag. I'm pretty sure that went out for a throw-in, right? That's Salah's one shining moment, other than scoring the 6th goal against Arsenal in the 6-0. Salah's one shining moment in a Chelsea shirt was the worst shot you'll ever see. Just hitting from the right side of the penalty area, across the ball, and spinning it out for a throw-in on the far side. That was impressive. We were impressed with Salah when he scored against us during his Basel days, though, says Mamoun. And this is certainly true. But we always tend to be impressed with players, more easily impressed with players who don't play for us. That seems to be a fairly common trend with fans and football in general. You always think the other team has better players. The grass is always greener on their side. And players can think of that as well, or can be guilty of thinking that as well, and that's not always the case. But and some of it is also obviously just sample size. We faced before we signed Salah. I think we faced him 3 times, and he scored 2 goals against us. So and on that sample, that guy was amazing. So then we signed him, and didn't really play him that much. And when we did play him, he was less than impressive. So then there you go. He quickly changed the assessment of a player. Manchester clubs are not showing any patience buying big names. Just look at them. Well, I mean that's the name of the game these days. Especially in the Premier League. We can talk as much as we want about development, player development, and stuff like that, but in the end, money wins titles. City with so much spending over the last 3 years that I can't even count. United not far behind, and you throw enough money at the problem, eventually you're going to arrive at the proper solution. There's PSG spending ungodly amounts on just 2 players and immediately inserting themselves into best in Europe discussion. Real Madrid have been doing this for 2 decades, 3 decades, so it's nothing new. Nothing new. It's just the scale of the enterprise keeps going up and up and up with the more money being injected into the game, with financial fair play being not really something that other teams seem to worry about too much. I mean, we worry about it plenty, but others don't seem to, so we just need to figure out how to sponsor ourselves like City or PSG do. United is a slightly different case just because they have just a tremendous merchandising engine. Same thing with like Real Madrid, but a lot of those guys are also, like Real was state sponsored for a while, so yeah. Anyway, back to the game. Back to the game. Good game from today, I think. You know, end on a positive note. We can complain all we want about missed opportunities and missed players, regrets about such and such, regret about this, regret about that. But today, you know, a good performance. Back to the 3-4-3, as we know from knowing love from last season. I mean, Huddersfield didn't exactly impress, so to say. Seemed surprisingly passive and unambitious. You know, it was this guy Wagner, who's the head coach for Huddersfield. He's supposed to be like the second coming of Jurgen Klopp as his former assistant and best friend. But we saw no evidence whatsoever of any Liverpool or Dortmund style from Huddersfield. You know, there's no pressing, no high press whatsoever. Very little effort. It just seemed to be very, very English, in the worst sense of that. You know, just compact, deep, and hope for the best. You know, poor old who's their center forward, Steve Mounier, was often pressing Courtois by himself with like the rest of his teammates on the halfway line. It's like, how frustrating must that be? It's yeah, it's surprising tactics from Huddersfield, but a good performance from Chelsea. You know, we still have to, you know, get through the mass ranks, and we did today, which is good because we didn't do that on Saturday. So it's good to put those failures to rest. Apparently, Cesar Azpilicueta continues his winning streak as captain, so that's another good thing to concentrate on. I mean, yeah, Huddersfield just are in the same class, says AFTAB. I mean, we knew that coming in, but you know, neither are West Ham or Swansea or Newcastle or whoever you faced recently. And we certainly struggled to break him down and score some goals. I mean, there was a couple of goals against Newcastle, but you know, there's some common themes in recent games where we've either struggled to finish our chances or we've lost concentration in the defensive end and conceded some pretty stupid goals. And there was a bit of that at the end today with Huddersfield getting their consolation goal, but you know, it's a lot different conceding that goal in the 92nd minute than it is conceding in the second minute. So we could probably consider that an improvement. And certainly, I think we scored with our first two chances on target, our first two shots on target. So it's definitely an improvement from Saturday. Do you think Christensen has been our player of the year so far? Is a question from Jared. I don't think Christensen has been our player. I think Conte has once again been our player of the season. Those 6 games that we missed included some from pretty poor midfield performances control. So I think Conte is our most indispensable and thus by definition player of the year. Christensen is close. I'm not saying he isn't, especially if David Luiz is truly injured and or on his way out. You know, Christensen kind of got that position on merit already before Luiz got hurt. So I think that's he's certainly in the conversation for player of the year, and you know, maybe we'll give it to him at the end of the season if he continues at the current pace. You know, there's always unsung heroes like Azpilicueta is constant. I think as a constant, always candidate for player of the year, player of the century, player of the decade. Yeah, I mean, Christensen's close. I'd give it to Conte if I were handing out awards at the moment. But yeah, Neil says definitely surprise of the year. He's been outstanding and nobody saw that coming. I mean, there were some players who certainly or some people who certainly advocated for Christensen, but I don't think even, you know, Papa Christensen would have imagined his son becoming such an important player for Chelsea straight away, basically. So think it's Christensen. There's so much good about him coming back and being a starter. Not just that he's good, but that the long-term plan has worked out so far. It's only 6 months, so things could go still long. But he's 21. He could easily be here for 10 years, if not more. I mean, that's the master plan working as masterfully as anyone would have expected. All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. It's going on 3 p.m. in these parts of the world. It's going on almost 11 p.m. over in the UK. People are making their way back from the freezing rain of Huddersfield, including Chelsea, who are 3-1 victors tonight. A goal from Bakayoko to get some of the constant attention off his back. Willian and Pedro on either side of halftime, putting the game well out of reach of the hosts, who are not very good today. So that's bad for them, good for us. Batshuayi, Drinkwater, and Ampadu coming off the bench late. Ampadu making his Premier League debut. That's nice to see. Musonda was on the bench too, so another good positive development there. Hazard, Conte, and Christensen all getting at least 10-15 minutes of rest at the end of the game. Also good. All that setting up nicely for Southampton on Saturday, and then Bournemouth in the League Cup on Wednesday. So 3-1 today to Chelsea. Positive attention for Bakayoko. Certainly better than negative attention. And Conte himself said that it's probably the best game Bakayoko played so far for us. And that's good praise, because there's been some decent performances from Bakayoko, including his debut against Spurs, and then against Atletico he was pretty good. He was pretty good against United, although he missed a couple chances. But anyway, so 3-1 to Chelsea. We're temporarily level with United on 35 points in second place, but our goal difference is 8 worse right now. United play tomorrow. Who do they play? United play at home against Bournemouth, so that's probably 3 points for United. City play away to Swansea. Arsenal play away to West Ham. Spurs host Brighton. Liverpool host West Brom. That's all tomorrow. So that's if all the favorites went out, then we remain in third, which is good. Got to keep pace with the rest of the top 4. And make that our primary goal of the season. So next up will be Southampton on Saturday, and we will talk to you after that. One more question here from Moon says, Matt Law reported Lamar news. Yeah, it's I saw that just before the game as well. Apparently, Lamar was supposed to go to Arsenal last summer, and then that deal kind of fell through. I mean, Lamar is clearly a good player. He's a left-sided attacker, so in a pinch, he could possibly even deputize for Alonso. Maybe not the best use of Lamar, but it's certainly an option that he provides as an attacking winger, wingback. The price was like £80 million, which sounds ridiculously outrageous, and at that point, maybe we should get Alexandro instead. But I mean, there you go. That's the report from Matt Law, so can't completely ignore it, and it might actually be something to it. I think 80 million is a ridiculous price to pay for Lamar, but not my money. So if we can afford it, then go nuts, I'd say. So okay. So Southampton on Saturday. We'll do one of these live thingies after that as well, as usual. If you watched any of this or all of this, I thank you. Thanks for all the comments, the questions, and I'll talk to you on Saturday.